Okay, and we are live. Fantastic. Okay, yay. So I hope everyone can hear us. Can we just do a quick sound check? Graham, can you say hello?
Hello. Hello. Wave, wave. I'm waving.
We have 3 dislikes. Okay. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's come out. I can't, my stream hasn't updated, so I can't see how many viewers we have. It should pop up in a moment. Um,
You got 230 watching now
okay,
on
so
on
that's great. Okay.
on YouTube. That's good. That's way more than I get.
It should go up. It should go up. So that's good. So I want to say a big welcome to Graham. I'll let Graham introduce himself in a moment. So I just want to say hello to everyone who's on the stream tonight. Thanks for turning up. Um, Remember, the super chats tonight are going to be donated to 2 charities. One is from the UNHCR, and the other is Galgos del Sol, which is a charity that I'm very supportive of. It's they rescue dogs in Spain, Spanish greyhounds, and they find homes for them because they are normally hunting dogs and they are treated quite badly in Spain. And there's a charity run by an English lady actually, and she rescues them and she finds homes for them. So the moderators are going to post links to the two charities in the stream. If you would like to send a super chat, we'll read out your super chats tonight. We're also going to talk about different topics that on the screen you should see them. And what else am I going to say? Well, I'll let Graham introduce himself. So for people who probably are living beyond the other side of the gammon curtain, I'm stealing that. I love that comment. I'm stealing it. Okay. So can you tell us a little?
Steal away.
So anyone who doesn't know you, have been living under a rock, tell us a little bit about yourself, Graham.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I've gained some notoriety in the UK through this whole fighting against Brexit malarkey, which hasn't done me much good. But before that, I was a travel writer and a travel presenter. I worked for Lonely Planet, BBC, National Geographic. I'm the first and only person to have visited every country in the world without flying. I invented this new Guinness World Record. I took it to the Guinness World Records and said, can I do this? They went, if you're mad enough, yeah. So I spent 4 years visiting 193 members of the United Nations, plus a few countries that aren't part of the UN, but are kind of countries, plus 17 territories on top of it, which just happened to be in my way when I was trying to go somewhere. And then I finished that and I got back to the UK and I applied to be on a American survival show, like, The Island with Bear Grylls, but it was with Ray Mears, who's like the Canadian Bear Grylls, and he really hates Bear Grylls. Just don't get him drunk and get him started on Bear Grylls, because he reckons he fakes everything, right? And whereas Ray Mears does everything real, he does it for real. Anyway, he does actually do. I saw him make fire with a stick, and it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I'm like, actually, you can do that. No special effects, just with a stick, he made fire. Amazing. If you're a caveman, you would need that guy. Anyway, so I won the competition, and the prize was my own private island in the Caribbean. So I went to live there, which was nice. So I went to live there for 3 years. And then Brexit happened in the UK. And because I'm an absolute idiot, I had this kind of reverse midlife crisis. And I abandoned my speedboat, my private island, all the bikini babes, everything. And I came home to be a suburban stepdad in Durham and fight Brexit. And I'm being successful at least one of those endeavors, I think. I hope. I don't know. So that's it. That's my life story so far, in a nutshell.
And what are you doing now? What are you doing on YouTube?
I'm doing a series of so I was making travel videos back in the day. I was making travel videos before YouTube existed. Oh God, I'm sounding really old now, aren't I? Oh, in my day, all this YouTube's right. It was all fields. It was all anyway. But I was making travel videos, and then I started making political videos. I launched the Three Blokes in a Pub podcast, which did quite well with me and Jason Hunter and Kira Knightley. No, not really. Kieran Donovan, who's Kieran the White Van Man, who famously took down Rees-Mogg on radio once. It was a beautiful thing to see.
Kieran the van driver.
Kieran the van man, yeah, Kieran
James
the van
O'Brien
driver.
describes him as.
He's always on. Well, he's never off, James O'Brien. But yeah, Kieran is a good guy. And then lockdown happened, and I decided in the second lockdown to start making live videos. And I started making Hughes at 10, which was me at 10 o'clock, doing a broadcast for an hour. And it went really well. I got loads of comments, and people were having a chat with me, and it was great. And so I decided to keep it going. And now we're in our third lockdown, so I'm continuing doing that. And I also have started rejoining.eu.uk, the website, and also me and Richard Wilson from Grassroots for Europe, not from One Foot in the Grave. I'm sure he hears that all the time. We've set up a thing every Wednesday, which anyone watching this is free to come and join. It's a Zoom chat, an interactive Zoom chat, and it's called The Road to Rejoin. And it's anyone who is involved in activism or part of an EU group in the UK or abroad. If you want to get involved in getting the UK, or I should say, getting the constituent parts of the UK back into the EU, it might be like one at a time. Probably will be one at a time, but yeah, get us all back one day into the bosom of the European Union.
Very good. I see we are at 449 viewers. So guys, smash that like button. I know Graham says don't smash the like button because you might damage your tablet or your phone, but press the like button. The back
of my phone is just trashed. I don't know if you can see that, but it's absolutely broken to smithereens, and that's from smashing like buttons too much. So that's what happens when you smash the like button too hard. So don't do it,
so
kids.
Just press it lightly, okay?
Just press it. Just give it a good tap.
Okay. So let's move on to some questions. So remember, guys, if you want your question to appear, we'll read it out. If you hit us with a super chat, you can do that. Very good. We have our very first. Well, we have actually. I want to read out a super chat that I received before the stream from Erman. Thank you so much, Erman, for sending €10. That was great. It wasn't a question. Just thanks for doing the stream. It's a great thank you to that. Thanks to you for sending the super chat. Unka sent €2. Thank you very much, Unka. Graham, 3 blokes in a pub was cool. Cool trio. Very good. Enzo the God says, how long before we're allowed to rejoin the EU? Okay, well, so we're going to get to this question. Can I answer that? Yeah, go ahead.
So we can rejoin the EU tomorrow if you wanted to. We could activate Article 49 of the Lisbon Treaty, which says we want to rejoin the EU. And I'm sure, as Britain has been a former member, and that we're aligned with Europe still on many, many things, it shouldn't be that big a problem. The thing is, though, we've got to be realistic. And a huge number of British people don't want to be part of the EU. They've been told for the last 30 years that the EU is their enemy. The EU came in the night. It stole all their precious things. It stole their husbands away. It stole their wives away. It stole all their hopes and dreams. It even took their ability to get an erection away. That was the EU. It did that. And they know it did that because the billionaires who own the Sun and the Telegraph and the Mail and the Express have been telling them that for the last 30 years. And to deprogram millions of people from a mad cult is going to take a long time. So we have to be realistic. And I think that everyone who's in the nascent Rejoin movement is all agreed that we are not going to push for a referendum to rejoin the EU until Britain is ready to rejoin the EU, as in the British people. And we know that we've got at least 66% of the population behind it. Because until that point, it's just going to keep going. It's just going to go on and on and on forever. And it's embarrassing. I feel it really embarrassing that I live in a country where we're part of Europe. But if you asked a lot of British people, what's your favorite continent or what's the best continent in the world, they'll really struggle to answer because they won't want to say Europe.
Yeah.
That's how bad it's got. It's like, what can you do? And so our policy is that we are trying to point out the bad stuff that Brexit's doing, try and point out the good stuff that the EU is doing, and then sort of tap into that nostalgia that we say that they had for the 1950s or the 1970s or whenever they grew up. We're going to tap into that for the 1990s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. Wasn't it great when we were in the EU and you could just, I don't know, trade and have a business and sell things,
and not have your fish sitting in a port for 3 days going rotten? Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so long ago when you could actually do that. It was like, what, 2 weeks ago?
It feels like 2 weeks ago. It really does, Max.
Ministerian, thank you so much for that. Ministerian sent 209 Danish kroner. Thank you so much for that.
It's not 20 quid, that. It's good, that.
And
Skull. It's because of my Danish lager that I'm drinking. Well, this is probably made in Britain.
No, if it's made in Britain, no, I'm not going to. Maybe if it's made in Britain, it's produced from, I don't know, Nigel Farage's.
Oh, don't say that. No, nothing to do with him. I'm going to look this up now. He said, it is made in the UK to a Danish recipe.
Okay. No,
so you can get around things, innit?
I prefer to drink British ale than Danish ale in Britain, or it's like Guinness. You never drink Guinness outside Ireland. You have to drink it in Ireland only.
Well, yeah, that's true. But Guinness have got the best advertising. We need to get Guinness, the people who do the advertising for Guinness, to do the advertising for rejoining the EU, and then we'll just win. Imagine you go to like a pub up a mountain in Africa, and it's got Guinness, and you're like, how have you got Guinness? Like, they've got nothing else from any other country in the world. It's all like locally brewed stuff, but they always have Guinness. Yeah, it's quite remarkable. Coca-Cola as well. You could walk for 2 days down a dirt track in Central Asia, get to a little village, and they'll have Coca-Cola. They've got no medicine or food or clothes, but they've got Coca-Cola.
Priorities, yes.
How do they do it? Yeah.
You should have Coca-Cola distribute. Yeah, Coca-Cola to distribute this vaccine. Ministerian said, won't buy in Ireland, but help for the charities. Very good point. Thank you so much for that. Jan Williams, 10 euro. Thank you so much for that. We also have £5 from Peter. If I tickle or stroke the like button, would you get more likes?
Hit the like button or tickle. Oh, that sounds horrible.
It's a family show.
It's a family show. Is it?
Okay, let's read the first topic. There's something I want to talk about after, but we can come to that later on. Fishing. I don't know if you can see that on your screen, Graham. The first topic is fishing. What do you want to say about fishing?
It's a pain in the arse. Like, never go. Just go to the supermarket. So I don't understand people going hunting and going, oh, look, a thing that doesn't need to be dead. Bang. Now it's dead. And like, some of them don't eat it, but some of them eat it. And like, that's so much hassle. Right? You catch a fish, you've got to descale it, right? And it's just a process. It's a massive process, descaling these little buggers. And then you have to gut them, right? And then you cook them. And then as you're eating them, you realize that you weren't so good at descaling the things that you thought you were. And you swallow a scale. It's horrible. And it's like, why would you just go to the supermarket and buy one? Yeah, so that's my thoughts on fishing. Plus, if you're fishing, you're on a boat. And if you're on a boat, you're likely to be seasick. I get seasick. I've traveled all over the world on cargo ships and yachts and fishing boats and all kinds of stuff. Hate them. It's just like you keep moving. You don't stop. It's horrible. I don't know why anyone would put themselves through this. But I hear some people like it. I hear some people are really into fishing. And that's great. That's cool. You know, some people like sumo wrestling, as we discussed earlier.
What about fishing connected to Brexit?
Oh, right. Okay, well, that's dead, isn't it? But all the fish are ours now. They're all British fish and they're happy.
They're happy fish.
If you just arrived from Mars, hi. Basically, this is planet Earth, and this is a country on Earth that I live in called Great Britain. It used to be great. It never was great. It's kind of great. It was great, but now it's not great. And we've got fish because it's an island, right? And it was a big thing in this whole let's disconnect ourselves from the rest of the planet movement called Brexit. And they thought that they'll take control of all the fish. Like, I don't know, radio control, that you'd have a little joystick and all the fish will move the way that you want them to.
No,
when they for about 5 minutes, you get bored.
When they enter the water, then they have to get their passport stamped.
Yes, they do, because once they enter our waters, they're British fish. So it was very, very important that although our computers and our microphones and our phones and our tables and our IKEA furniture and our paint on our walls and our light and our lighting, it was very important, even though everything in our lives is made by other people in other countries, that our fish was caught by British people. That was very, very important. Fish had to be caught by British people. There was a problem with this. Most of the fish that we like to eat, like cod, doesn't actually live in British waters. So you have to go somewhere like Iceland, where there's a lot of cod. And you say to Iceland, can I have some of your fish? And they go, yeah, okay. And then they sell you the fish. And we go, well, we've got this like herring. Do you want to buy some herring? And they're like, yeah, we'll have some herring. And it goes back and forth. And that's the way, trade works. But we decided now that we're going to keep all our own fish that we don't eat and not sell any to Europe because we don't like them. Because we are a nation of geniuses.
Okay. Alexander, thanks for that super chat. He sent £5. The best Guinness ad post I propose next is Black is Beautiful. Johan says, Graham Hughes, what a speech. Fantastic. €5. We have Kip. Whoa, my screen is jumping around again. Okay. From Kip, thanks very much, Kip. €5. The second best Guinness is from Africa. UK imports some Guinness from Africa. Check it out. I heard a story about
Guinness is big. It's big in Africa. It really is. And the Caribbean.
But I heard a story, and I don't know if it's true about Guinness. I don't know. We're going to spend the whole night talking about drink. But I remember this story about there was a huge market. They started a market in Africa, maybe in South Africa. I'm not sure exactly where it was. And it became really popular. Guinness became really popular. So they decided to open a brewery in Africa, or South Africa, or wherever it was. And as soon as they opened it, they had to close it down. And they couldn't understand why. It was because what was happening was the Guinness was being transported by ferry or by container ship. And it was fermenting on the ship. And the flavor was changing. And it was more popular, the fermented version of Guinness, than a fresh version. I don't know if that's
there you go.
Is it a true story or not. We have another €5 from Umka. Thank you very much for that. As an ex-Russian, I can say that the UK is like Russia. A lot of great empire nostalgia fed by mass media and education and corrupt government. What do you think about that, Graham?
100%. Yes. Look, I've got a degree in history and politics from Manchester University. I got A's in my A levels in those subjects. And I traveled, as I said, to every country in the world. And I knew very, very, very little about the EU before we decided to leave the damn thing. And it was only then when I went, hang on, what are we doing? What? And it's kind of embarrassing the way that the media, the television, the TV shows that we watch, the education syllabus, just everything just has this big black hole where Europe should be as a subject of something that we talk about or something that we regard with respect. And every single person I meet who is a Brexiteer who's military, I say to them, well, who are our NATO allies? And they're like, oh, well, other countries. And I'm like, well, there's only 30 countries in NATO, only 30 countries, because North Macedonia became a member last year. And out of those, 21 are in the EU. So all these lies about them being the enemy, I mean, yeah, if you're Russian, I'm sure they are. But if you're Britain, you're talking about 21 countries that have signed a contract that they will send men and women to fight and die for my country from another country if we get invaded. And we've just disrespected that. We've just got, we don't care about that. They're not our friends.
We don't need them. That's not going to happen, so we don't need them. That's the Brexit.
We're not going to need them. Can we talk a little bit more about fishing? Because I was kind of doing the big overall. I didn't think we were going to move on so fast. I was just going to say, so this week, the problem with fishing, which is that we can't sell our catch in the EU anymore, has finally just dawned on everyone. And there's a trawlermen up in Scotland. Well, trawlermen, I don't know. They get crayfish and langoustines and lobster and stuff, and they sell it on the continent. Now, not only are these people getting whacked by the fact that all these restaurants are closed and cafes are closed across the continent and in the UK as well, they're getting whacked now because they can't sell their catch. But one of them, a woman called Mary Edwards, who's from Wales. Yeah. She was notorious because she appeared in a Channel 4 report that was also echoed in the Express newspaper back in September 2019, basically saying she spent £40,000 prepping for no deal and she thought that her business would be fine, and she didn't have no regrets about voting for Leave, and she did it for her grandchildren. To which someone on YouTube, on Twitter replied, "You must really hate your grandchildren." I was like, yeah, it's just a bizarre way of looking at the world, which is that if you went in to the bank and said, "I want to start a business," and they're like, "Okay, what are you going to do?" And we're gonna spend all this money on a boat, and we're gonna get all this fish out the water, and then what are you going to do with it? Well, we're just going to let it rot on the quayside. That's the business plan. That's the plan right there. That's the plan. Can we have some money? Can we start this business? And the bank manager will just chase you out the bank, chase you up a tree.
I want to start a business selling black and white TVs or something like that.
Yeah, that can't get to their destination. But the whole of Brexit is underpinned by this idea that we'll be free to trade with the rest of the world. And this is where I go, can I pull rank here, please? Can I just say that I've seen more of the world than most people? I'm the only person to have been to every country without flying. So that's my,
you've seen a lot of it.
And unique selling point.
It's not just jumping from one airport to the next.
No, it's literally walking across every border and seeing what it's like to cross every single border. And borders aren't great. And what people don't understand or don't realize is that Europe is the anomaly in the world because it doesn't have borders. And you can make something in Britain and sell it in Warsaw in the same way that you could just make something in Britain in Liverpool and sell it in Manchester. This is the problem. So it's like this way that we've gone looking at the world and gone, well, only sort of this much of our trade is with the EU. There's a big world out there, and we can basically sell more stuff to the rest of the world if we're free of the EU. And it's a sacrifice worth making. But the problem with that, going back to NATO, let's look at another list, the list of countries that the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, regard as advanced nations. Now, it includes places like Hong Kong and Puerto Rico, which are parts of other countries. You strip them away, there's 39. There's 39 nations in the world. There's 38 members of the UN and Taiwan, which are seen by the IMF as advanced economies. And of them, 30 of them are in Europe. 30. And of the ones that remain, you have got none in Africa. You've got none in the Caribbean. You've got none in Latin America at all. There's 54 countries in Africa, and not a single one is regarded as an advanced economy by the IMF. And you're like, God, that's a lot of countries. In fact, if you put the GDP of all those 54 countries in Africa together, it's less than the GDP of France on its own. To give you some idea of the magnitude of what we're talking about.
But also, like somebody had written in the chat as well about Kanzuk. But even with Kanzuk, if you could put all the Kanzuk countries together, and it wouldn't be the same as Belgium, the amount of trade that the UK has with Belgium. So you're throwing away a huge amount to gain a very little amount. But you already were able to do that. There was nothing. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was nothing stopping the UK from trading with Canada or Australia.
We had a free trade deal with them through the EU.
But let's say a country that there isn't a free trade deal with, like Australia, there was nothing stopping the UK from, like, of course there are restrictions or whatever, but there's not, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you could still sell things to Australia.
Yeah.
It was just the conditions were not ideal.
Yeah. But also, I mean, look, you just look, it's a numbers game, basically. Look at Canada. 40 million people. Look at Australia, 25 million people or so. New Zealand is 4.7 million. You put those populations together, it's less than the population of the UK. So it's like, I think, just about. But and they're on the other side of the world. I mean, Canada, okay, it's a bit closer, but New Zealand and Australia, they're on the other side of the world.
But they already trade more with Asia than they do with Europe or the United States.
Of course, because
it's closer.
It's geographic, what's it called? Economic gravity. You trade more with your neighbours. It's just the way it is. And another thing is that a lot of our trade is obviously with services, which isn't covered by this withdrawal agreement or the deal or anything.
Yeah, and that's something I didn't understand. Why were services not included in this?
Well, because the EU basically gave Britain the deal and said, here's the deal. And Britain went, oh, I don't want to sign this. I don't want to sign this. I don't want to sign this. And then it signed it. So the EU runs a surplus of goods into the UK. So it was in the EU's interest to get a goods deal. The UK runs a surplus of services into the EU. So it was in their interest to not have a deal at all because they don't care. Because you don't do a trade deal with people because you want to buy things off them. And this is something that just passes lots of people by. Again, go into the bank and say, I want to start a business. What do you do? Well, I'm just going to buy a load of stuff from Europe. Okay, great. And then what? No, that's it. That's the end of the story. That's the end of the business pitch. Yeah. I'm going to buy loads of things. How does that, what? Well, you see, the thing is, if I buy things off them, then they need me more than I need them. Okay. You've lost me. You've completely lost me. Please get out my bank and put some trousers on, you absolute lunatic.
I do recommend people to check out Graham's video on Dragon's Den. We'll try and get it posted up. It's amazing. Okay.
The sweet company.
Yes. But it's exactly what Brexit is about. Let me go ahead. We have Michael Taylor. We have £5 from Michael. Very good. Thank you very much, Michael. The footballism, so that you know the footballism that James O'Brien describes, that you often refer to, has a name in psychological circles. It's called in-group, out-group bias. It's very interesting. Are you familiar with that? You probably are, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I do this all the time. I make the point of who's on your side. And I do this with Brexit, and I do this with Trump, and I do this with, I'll do this with anyone. I'll do this with Erdogan in Turkey, or with Duterte in the Philippines, or with Bolsonaro in Brazil. Who's on their side? Is it all the Nazis? Yeah. Okay. Well, they're probably not a goodie then. You know, I mean, you might get one or two people who support them who you wouldn't really want to go to the pub with. But seriously, if you're on one side and you've got David Attenborough, and they're on the other side and they've got the scum who killed Joe Cox, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, well, I get this in-group, out-group thing. Look around, who's behind you? Do you want to be on their team? And that's the way it's gone. That's human psychology, I'm afraid. So I don't think there's anything we can do about it. So I just say, well, embrace it, and then point out to people who say that Farage isn't that bad, point out the fact that he kept campaigning after Joe Cox died, because he just didn't care. He just doesn't care. He literally doesn't care. And also, if you ever talking to anyone who has any respect for Nigel Farage at all, ask them why Nigel Farage's children get to keep their right to live and work in the EU. Right? They don't need any qualifications. They don't need any experience. They don't need to pay for a work permit. They can just live and work in the EU. 31 other countries, because it's EU plus, obviously. And our children don't.
Or the person who's telling you, they can't, generally.
Yeah. But Nigel Farage's children can. Boris Johnson's dad can. Great. Thanks for that. Bastards. Yeah. Can I swear in this?
Yes, of course. You fucking better swear.
Yes. They're all a bunch of cunts.
Very good. Luke, thank you very much, £10. Graham, why did you remove the three blokes from a pub from your YouTube channel? I'd like to see...
There were legal reasons for that. I didn't want to. I'm sorry.
Honestly,
it broke my heart more than it broke yours, because I spent a lot of time making those things and I edited them. And can we move on?
Yes. Let's Nico.
Ask me why my TV show's never been shown in the UK while you're at it.
Why was it never shown?
I made a TV show for Lonely Planet, National Geographic, and the BBC called Graham's World. It was broadcast in 50 countries around the world. It was broadcast in China. It was broadcast in India. My show has been broadcast to over 2.5 billion people around the world. It's never been shown in the UK.
Why not?
Because I could go down a whole rabbit hole here about Lonely Planet. So Lonely Planet was bought by the BBC, right? And then I made my TV show with Lonely Planet as a production company and the BBC as a distributor. And then BBC sold Lonely Planet after absolutely fucking it up for £50 million less than they paid for it. And it was all a massive fuck up. And I was caught in this maelstrom. And my show's never been on British TV. I keep writing to Disney Plus saying, you know, you've got National Geographic shows. Could you show mine? Could you? And it's hard because the show is called Graham's World. So it's hard for me to go, hey, I heard about this great show called Graham's World, starring this guy called Graham Hughes. Yours sincerely, Graham Hughes. And it just looks a bit, you know,
well, if you want me, I can send a few emails on your behalf.
Pressure on Disney Plus. I don't know. In America, it's shown on the Travel Channel, and they've redone the voiceover because the original voiceover was a guy from Preston, and he honestly sounds like Ringo Starr narrating Thomas the Tank Engine. So they redid it in America so Americans could understand, because Americans have huge problems with accents. I don't know if you know this, but one of the Mad Max films, I think it was Mad Max 1 or Mad Max 2, they redubbed the speaking parts from Australian English to American English so people could understand what they were saying.
But it wasn't that.
It's a true story.
What if they were, I don't know, Braveheart or something like that? What would they do? I
don't know.
No comment.
But if people want to watch my TV show, it's on my G Drive. They just send me an email and I'll just send them the link.
I want to see it. I want to see it.
Piracy. It's piracy.
Nico, thank you very much for that super chat. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Let's see. We have Pilskin, €5. Thank you very much for that as well. All to great causes. How Pilskin once again. We have Peter. Thank you very much, Peter. If fish enters British waters, they're British. If immigrants enter, they are thrown back. Yeah. So fish are treated with more respect than humans attempting to get.
Well, this is a point worth making, Max. It's like Priti Patel wants to treat the children of refugees. These children are fleeing from death. They're fleeing from war. They're fleeing from being raped. And she wants to put them on a rock in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
I don't know what to say. I have a feeling that she's trying to out-Tory the other Tories. Oh, have we lost Graham? Oh no. Can you guys hear me? I think we lost Graham for a moment. Oops, this is embarrassing. Let's see if we can get Graham back on again. Let me read out some of your super chats while we see about getting... Let me see if I can get Graham back. I don't know. Okay, Graham has gone. He should be trying to get back in a moment. We have where did Jason Hunter go? I'll have to ask Graham when he returns. We have Jean from Seattle. Thank you very much, Jean. Graham,
hello,
you're back?
I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No
I think my girlfriend's just started watching the next episode of Bridgerton, and it just took me off. Sorry about that. Bloody Netflix. What was I saying? I was in the middle of a spiel as well. God damn it.
So we'll move on to the next question. Where did Jason Hunter go? We'll skip that one.
I don't know. He's doing his own thing.
Okay.
But I still see Kieran. Kieran appears on my on Hughes round a couple of times on Daily Show. I'm hoping to get a video of him up, actually having a chat with him in the near future. He's in Spain at the moment, tweeting pictures of beautiful sunrises and things. So I think he's having a good old time. I don't know what he's doing. Adam, who also did Three Blokes with us, he's moved to Denmark, and he's now enjoying his newly found EU citizenship that had been taken away if he had stayed in Yorkshire. So it's difficult. Maddie Kay is still, she's still doing art. She's still doing really good art, but she's a bit knackered from campaigning, which I completely understand. Mike Galsworthy is still gung-ho for rejoining the EU and doing all this kind of stuff. And obviously the irrepressible Ben Chambers is still not, he's still making the 16 Million Rising podcast, which I really recommend. And he's just such a lovely guy. He's just such a lovely guy. If you ever meet him, you just want to give him a hug. Don't because of COVID, but you will just want to give him a hug. True story.
A virtual hug. Okay.
Yeah. But we've also got, it's just, since this bomb went off, Brexit happened, and it was horrible because it was like just watching a car crash in slow motion and not being able to do anything about it.
Did you guys believe that maybe the ship would be turned at the last moment, or that reason would have taken over? And I know not with Boris Johnson in charge, but maybe when Theresa May was there, because I had hopes that maybe she would, the reasonable people.
Not her.
Sorry, go on.
Not her, but I think my most hopeful, it's that quote, isn't it? It's from Clockwise, where they say it's not the despair, it's the hope that gets you. But it was probably in the summer of 2019 when Boris Johnson had just become Prime Minister. They just got rid of a bunch of Tory MPs, including Nicholas Soames, who's Winston Churchill's grandson, and they'd purged them from the party, and they had a minority. They were a minority government, and all the opposition parties had to do was nothing, just do nothing. Because of the Fixed Term Parliament Act of 2011, Boris Johnson was in a box. He was in a box. There was nothing he could do without approval of Parliament. To get approval of Parliament, he had to do things that went absolutely outrageously horrible. And he just kept saying, have an election. Why don't you have an election? Just have an election. Let's have an election. Because he had seen the exact same polling data that the Labour Party had seen, and that the Liberals had seen, and the pro-EU group, Best for Britain, had paid for it to be done to show two things. One, more people now wanted to stay in the EU than leave. Number two, if there was a general election tomorrow, Labour would win with an 80-seat majority. And that was in the summer of 2019. And they all saw that. So Cummings is looking at this going, right, we've got to have an election. We've got to have an election. And Jeremy Corbyn done quite well. I think I've got about half an hour without mentioning his name. He managed. This is a man. Imagine how unlikable Trump is. Trump is possibly the most unlikable being in the multiverse. He is just hideous. He's like every single kid from Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory mushed together and made into a person out of Play-Doh or something, right? He's awful. He is absolutely no Charlie Bucket, just the bad ones. He is awful. And yet his approval rating was -10. -10. Always. That was just his approval rating throughout his presidency. Jeremy Corbyn's approval rating in 2019 was -40. -40, and he had a choice.
At one stage, I think.
Yeah. There was a different question being asked, but basically it was like, how much do you want this guy to be running the country? And people didn't. But because he's a narcissist, because he lives in his own brain, because he surrounded himself with sycophants, he tragically, this is like a Shakespearean tragedy. Pride goes before the fall. This massive egotist. He did what George Lucas did in Star Wars Episode 1. He surrounded himself by yes men who went, yes, every idea you've got is amazing, George. Well, I was thinking of making a movie about a trade federation and jive-talking I don't know, amphibian rabbits. And everyone went, yeah, that sounds amazing. Star Wars Episode 1 exists because of yes men saying yes to people who don't have, I don't know, the brain power or the commitment to their art or their politics or whatever they're doing to actually put people who will say no in front of them. So they have to justify what they think or what they believe, which I think is really important. It's a Socratic method, isn't it? You need people to challenge you, to be able to formulate your opinions and formulate your arguments, defending your opinions, I believe. But, you know, that's just me. That's all I'm saying. George Lucas syndrome.
I love this. There was a scene when they had edited the entire movie, Episode 1. They had screened it, and George was sitting there watching it, and the other people were around him, the other producers. And he looked at them, and they looked at him, and he said, "It's too late now." Basically, he was like, "Yeah, it's too late now." He realized it was shit even at that stage. He was like, "No."
But at least maybe he realized it was shit. I don't think he did because he went on to make Star Wars Episode 2. But yeah, when Corbyn lost the 2017 election, he was interviewed and he said, "I think it was very clear who won that election." And I was like, okay, but it wasn't you. And then after the 2019 election, he said, "Yes, but I won the argument." Like, what argument were you? What? That's just like completely bizarre guy in his own reality. But seriously, to this day, Mark, I have had more shit off Corbynistas than I've had off Brexiteers. How did that happen?
Have you seen Novara Media?
That's kind of like the canary on the internet, isn't it?
Yeah,
on YouTube, I should say.
Yeah. But they continually defend Corbyn. Anyway,
Boris Johnson is still worse than Jar Jar. That's one of our messages.
Let's move on.
Yes. Boris Johnson. There was a character called Billy Bunter who was like this little fat kid in a private school in Britain, like a little comic fat kid. And basically, Boris Johnson is a mashup of Billy Bunter and a Dalek. And once you think about that, every time you hear him speak, it's just like, oh my God, it's Billy Bunter and a Dalek mashed together. And that's our Prime Minister. Embarrassing.
The best description of Donald Trump I heard was cream cheese injected into a suit.
Oh. So it could be dinner come back up.
Okay, Jean from Seattle, or Jean Seattle. Thank you very much for that $5. Very kind of you. We have Alex. Why wait for blinkered to see the light? Why fight money buying opinion? Why no individual membership? Don't patronize the pipe dream. Why can't it happen? I'm not sure.
What?
I'm not sure.
Could you translate that into Scouse?
So why wait for blinkered to see the light? Why wait for 4 years maybe to see the light? Why fight money buying opinion? Why no individual membership? Don't patronize. No pipe dream. I'm not sure. Maybe it's about rejoining the European Union. I'm not sure. Sorry, Alex.
It's going to take a long time before we rejoin the European Union. I think it's going to be 10 years.
Or maybe
we're going to have the 2024 election. If we get PR in that, then that's good. If Scotland gets independence, that's going to be good for us rejoining the EU one day. But it's going to take a long time because what they had at the end of World War II in Germany was a process of denazification, where everything to do with the Nazi Party was just stripped away and it became illegal.
Will there be a de-Brexitization?
We need a de-Brexitization, where if you get, I don't know, a picture of Nigel Farage tattooed on you, you will be thrown in jail. Like in Germany, if you get a swastika tattooed on you, you'll be thrown in jail, quite rightly. Because I'm as tolerant as the next guy, but if you tolerate intolerance, then that's the road to ruin for a tolerant society. Yeah, the tolerance paradox. And I'm not that tolerant, do you know what I mean? It's like, but I find myself sort of torn because there's that feeling, isn't it? Do we give a Brexiteer a hug and we say, it's all going to be all right, you know, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, like Goodwill Hunting, or do you just want to sort of just go, for fuck's sake, you've just fucked up my life and the life of everybody else around here. Can you just say sorry? Just say sorry. Just please, just say sorry. You say sorry, I'll stop calling you a moron. Does that sound like a deal? Please.
It's like I'm a bit critical of James O'Brien when he says, was it concern for the conned, condemnation for the con man?
Compassion for the cons.
Yes, compassion.
Yeah.
But for how long can you do that? Because there's some people who voted for Boris Johnson, voted for Brexit, then voted for Theresa May, then voted for Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
And then they're complaining, well, Boris Johnson lied to me.
Yeah,
there's a queue of
but
people
actually,
Boris
James
Johnson's...
O'Brien picked up on this morning, and he made a very good point about the fact that he can say that because Brexit doesn't really affect him. In fact, he's made money out of Brexit because he managed to sell books. Like before Brexit happened, he was just a head on a stick. Sorry, a gob on a stick. God, went into Wolf Creek territory there. He was just a gob on a stick, right? But then, Brexit came along, and he found his niche as the only privately educated Remainer in the country, I think, which was nice. He's made money out of it, and he has access to an Irish passport, so he can always get out. He can always escape. It's not as easy as that. And he's also got his education, his qualifications. He can escape. He can get out of here. But if you are an unskilled labourer in the United Kingdom and you didn't want Brexit and you're put out of a job because of Brexit, there's nowhere you can go now. You can't offer you the same pet off to Germany and work there. They won't let you in, because why would they give you a work permit if you can't speak German and you've got no transferable skills? And that's the big problem.
Okay, let's move on. Flying Spaghetti Monster is the dog. Says
FSM.
Yes.
I've got a FSM t-shirt.
Cool.
I went to the Federated States of Micronesia and I forgot my FSM t-shirt. I was very upset. I've been touched by his noodly appendages.
When will we start the stupid fees for buying stuff, VAT, like VAT, customs, etc.? It's totally crazy. I no longer buy stuff, and I'm not alone. Yeah, so for example, I did a video on this about how if you're buying stuff on Amazon from UK, and there are people who have been buying things from the UK, and they received their product, and then they received a customs notification where they had to pay £30 or €30 or €100 or something like that. Is this going to end? I don't think so.
No. Well, this is normal. This is my new sort of thing. I'm going to relaunch my show on Monday, actually, and just call it Brexit Reality, because I want to explain to people this is normal. When you sell stuff across a border anywhere else in the world, there's taxes to pay, there's customs duties, you've got to get stamps and forms filled out and all this kind of nonsense. The EU did away with all that.
If you buy anything, anyone buy something from the United States, for example. I bought something, I don't remember what it was, some years ago. It sat in customs for a month. I had to send documents to get it out of customs. I had to declare that it was a gift or something like that. I had to declare how much it cost. Because they couldn't open it and check the receipt. They had to have me resend the documentation, a copy of the receipt. And then after a couple of weeks, it was released, and I had to pay €30 for the customs. I was like, but the object itself cost 100, and I had to pay 30 extra.
Yeah. Well, I've crossed 200 borders, so I could bore you to death all night. I could stay here telling you about crossing every border in the goddamn world, because I actually did it. And it's normal. That's normal. They open your bag, they go through everything you've got. You've got sandwiches, they get thrown in the bin every time. Every time. So I learned not to travel with sandwiches. If they find a knife in your backpack, they'll go, "Oh, I'll throw this away." I learned to hide my knife on my body somewhere to stop that from happening. I mean, it was just normal. It was just normal in other countries that you have a border, and the border is there to protect the country from other people coming in from other countries and working for less money than they would have to pay someone native in their country. And that's what every country wants to do. That's not unique to the UK. But what the EU did was it really discovered this game formula, this game theory formula that it said, well, actually, if we throw open our borders in the greater scheme of things, we will make more money that way. We will upset more racists. We'll upset more xenophobes. We'll upset more Nigel Farages. and his fellow billionaire he's not a billionaire, millionaire city bankers, but we will make more money. In fact, if we just threw open our borders to anyone who wanted to live here, we would make a metric fuck ton of money. Because the thing is this, if you have, just like really simple economics, if you have a baby born in the United Kingdom, you have to pay for it to be born. You have to pay for it to go to school. You have to pay for it to get it vaccinated and go to hospital when it breaks its legs or leg or play football or whatever. And eventually, at the age of 18 or the age of 21, they'll be ready. They'll be a fully formed human being thing, and they'll go into the workforce. And that costs, getting them into the workforce costs a load of money. Now, if you have someone coming from another country who's already gone through that and another country's paid for it, your quid's in, because you're getting the skill and talent that some other country has paid to put into another human being. If you want to look at human beings as commodities, then yeah, great. Sounds. We make loads of money. And that's why consistently, year on year, EU migrants into the United Kingdom, they gave a surplus of money to the Chancellor, whereas native Britons like myself, we actually cost money. And I still cost money. I still haven't paid back my student loan. Don't know when I'm going to do that. Maybe one day. I think it gets written off in a few years.
But the people don't. But the people who are voting don't want to hear, a foreign voice at the local Tesco or something like that. Okay, let's move on.
I'm so excited when I hear a foreign voice, and now I feel bad because I want to know where someone's from, because I want to have a friendly conversation with them about their country.
Are you a Brexiteer? Are you coming to check my papers?
Well, yeah, no, honestly, that's the way they talk to. That's the way you get responded to, because obviously someone said to them in the last 4 years, F off back where you came from. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So when I say, oh, where you from? There's a hesitancy there that I never had when I was traveling. I never thought, I better not say I'm from Britain just in case of all the historic crimes that Britain has committed. I mean, if everyone was if everything was equal, right? Me, as a British person, going to the Caribbean, they just throw me in the sea. What if I go to Ireland? The population of Ireland, as you well know, has not recovered yet from the fucking potato famine of the 1840s because the British starved the country. Half the country left or died. And the population still hasn't recovered. It's 2021 and it still hasn't recovered. Yeah. So, if we all acted like shit for being British.
If we all acted like Brexiteers, yes. We have our own. Don't worry. We have our own Brexiteer type people here as well. Here in Italy, in particular. Yes. Let's move on. We have Kip. Thank you very much, Kip. €5. Sorry for grammar mistakes, Max. Don't worry about that. You don't want to see my writing. And thanks for the collaboration with a different bias as well. You listen. I'm for Cod Blue passports. Cod Blue. Yes, very nice. Thank you very much, Kip. Yeah. We have Max. Your chat isn't scrolling. My chat isn't scrolling. Thank you very much, JD. It should be. Dirk, keep it up. Thank you very much. We're getting a lot of stickers. So people just saying keep it up. Great job. Thanks for that. We have James S. Especially in the pandemic, it's more reliable. Sorry, it's more reliable trade with countries near you rather than Asia. Yeah. So as you were saying before, during a pandemic, you're not going to be trading so much with countries all over the world. You'd be trading with people close by.
Economic gravity.
Yeah. Once again, Ahmed.
Mark's asking, have we got to any questions yet?
Ahmed, thank you very much for that super chat. Number 1 fan. Great. Thank you so much for that £10. I hope I'm not missing any here. Well, because we got so many that I'm trying to go through all of them. I missed. Wait a minute. One moment. Wow, we got so many because I'm trying to go through and the chat doesn't contain all of them. So I'm going to try and read as many as I can. Umka said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke. Do you agree? Yes. I imagine you do.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
we've seen how there were many opportunities to stop Brexit, and we're not going to go back into Jeremy Corbyn again, but I think if some, I place a lot of the blame with Jeremy Corbyn and Joe Swindon. Joe
Swinson.
Yeah, from the Liberal Democrats. Because she didn't want to jump on board either, because she said, well, Jeremy Corbyn is in charge. And, I think both of them, I don't know if you agree with me, Graham, but I think it was more Jeremy Corbyn, because the Liberal Democrats were not going to run the country. So it wasn't really a loss for them. Well, in the end,
they were only a handful.
Yeah. But
they were only a handful, but they had already shown their willingness to work with other parties in the Brecon and Radnorshire by-election in the summer of 2019, where they worked with Plaid Cymru and with the Greens to have a unity candidate who won against the Tory incumbents. They'd already proven that they'll be up for doing that kind of thing. And look, in Swinson's defense, which I'm not really that enthusiastic about giving, but at least her party was together. Like, Jeremy Corbyn was asking for support from other parties, and he didn't even have the support of his own party. And that was a fundamental problem. I mean, Labour was split in two between these sort of dewy-eyed acolytes of Corbyn who saw him as the second coming. They thought he was the Messiah. And it was like, and they got so angry that I couldn't see what they could see. And it was cult-like. It was like when you're talking to someone who's in the Scientologists or the Moonies or one of these cults, and they're like, why can't you see the magnificence of this person? And I'm like, he just looks like some old guy, career politician, went to a private prep school, grew up in a country manor, never had to work a day in his life. He does politics for sport, pleasure, hobby, whatever. I don't know. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Yeah, I when I was defending him, I was saying, look, I probably agree with him on many things. I think if I sat down with him, he'd say, look, we should end poverty. We should end, the treatment of immigrants coming into the UK or wherever in the world. He probably wants world peace, things like this. But I think as a leader, he was terrible.
But, I mean, even as a socialist, I think I'm more socialist than he is, because I want UBI. I want universal basic income. I want it tomorrow. I want to release the pain and the suffering of millions of people for no reason other than that they were not born to some rich person, which is what happens to people in the UK and around the world all the time. And I want to see voter reform. I want to see PR in the UK. I want to make every vote count so that people don't feel left behind, because when they put a cross on the piece of paper for the Green Party or for UKIP for that matter, it actually counts. That vote counts. At the moment, if they are in a constituency that is always Labour or always Conservative, whoever else they vote for, their vote does not count. And that is wrong. That is so wrong at so many levels. And I don't know how you can say that you're a socialist when you're not talking about voter reform, you're not talking about proportional representation, and you're not talking about being a member of the European Union, the greatest union of socialist-leaning countries in the world. If you want to give me a big list of countries around the world that you think are a little bit socialist, most of them are going to be in the EU. Yes. Put simply. Anyway,
okay. I want to say a big thank you to the moderators who've actually have collated all of the super chats onto Discord so I can read them directly. That's fantastic. Thanks to Glasgow Kiss for doing that. So our next super chat is from your man off the telly. I love these names. Great to see Graham on the stream. Max, really enjoyed Three Blokes in a Pub series. Fantastic. Ministerian again with 45 kroner. Thanks so much. Boris Johnson is still worse than Jar Jar. I think it's but at least Jar Jar tried to redeem himself. Boris
No, he
Johnson.
didn't. Actually, there you go, right? So, there's a bit in Star Wars Episode 3 where Jar Jar Binks he says, I think we should give unlimited power to Emperor, Chancellor Palpatine, the big bad guy. And that's exactly what Jeremy Corbyn did, going along with that election, giving all this power to Boris Johnson, who is the Emperor Palpatine of our time. Nail on the head there. A lot of people said that when Jeremy Corbyn first came out and he was all new and shiny, they said, he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi. But they were picking the wrong Alec Guinness role. They should have been talking about Colonel Nicholson from Bridge on the River Kwai, because he builds a bridge for their mortal enemies, the Japanese. And when the Americans try and blow the bridge up, he tries to save his bridge. It's helping the Japanese to kill people. Just let them blow it. No, I've got to save my bridge. And he ends up dying at the end, just going, they're looking at it going, the madness, the madness. Or was that Apocalypse Now? I always get those two films mixed up. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Moving on.
Can we get some more questions?
Yes.
We're going to be here all night.
Glasgow Kiss, thank you. £25 from Glasgow Kiss, thanks so much.
Thank you, Glasgow.
Just want to say a big thank you to all guys, Max, Davey, Gordon, Mark, Bowler Hatman, Phil, Graham, etc., for the tireless work debunking this nonsense and keeping people informed. Solancha. Thank you so much, Glasgow Kiss. James has Boris lives in Rainbow Land. Yes, Boris lives in. How many children does Boris Johnson have actually at this moment in time? I haven't.
Wikipedia would love to know.
They need updating. Conservator says, thanks very much, Conservator, for the €2.29, €2.29, and thanks to James for the €2. Conservator says just 18 more subjects to go, and UBI is last.
Oh God, we'll get there in the end.
Akbar, thank you so much for that $9. Thank you so much. Jan says, I'm finding many UK papers are owned by non-UK businesses. Is there something behind that that caused the shift in the Brexit vote? How can we protect correct news? So what do you think about that? About the so many UK newspapers were behind the Brexit vote, like especially the tabloids. How can we fix that? Is there a way to fix that?
First of all, don't buy the Sun. Don't buy the Sun. So I'm from Liverpool, so we've had a no buy the Sun policy for many years after their horrific coverage of the Hillsborough disaster, in which they blamed the victims of the Hillsborough disaster for the deaths of 96 football fans, one of whom was just a child, just 11 years old. I think maybe as a result of that is one of the reasons why Liverpool voted to remain, 58%. When it comes to what we can do about the tabloids, I mean, I don't know at the moment. That's going to be my honest answer about what we can do actually about the tabloids, except maybe get people not to read them. If anyone's watching this who's up for a bit of activism once COVID's over, get in touch with me, because I'll be well up for a bit of covert activism, if you know what I mean. But if someone, I don't know, did what Extinction Rebellion did last year and blocked the printers so they couldn't get out for a day, that might be a good thing. Also, if, I don't know, someone who has a lot of time and expertise on their hands could do a DDoS attack on someone. I'm going too far into this, aren't I? If we could get a group of people who want to do a troll farm, a good troll farm, a white hat troll farm, where we all pick times of the day, the week, where we just spend an hour going on the message boards, the comments on the Mail online, and leaving comments that are pro-EU comments and explaining what reality is to these lunatics. That'll get seen by people outside of our bubble. One of the other things that I want to do, and I've actually got a little pamphlet here, which I'll show you. I want local EU activists in the UK, and if anyone's watching this, please join our Road to Rejoin meetings on Wednesday. If you go to rejoineu.uk, my website. You can go down to the bottom and click onto the weekly meetings link, and it will give you a thing for the week. It'll give you a link for the weekly meetings eventually. But something like this, right? So this is the idea that you just give out A5 sheets that you just print out at home, just print out an A4 sheet and cut it in two. This is called the Interesting Times, because I'm a big Terry Pratchett fan. And basically this just tells the people on your street, literally on your street or in your area, about something bad that's happened because of Brexit in your area. So if a butcher shop is closed down because of Brexit, it actually says, butcher shop closed down because of Brexit. And they'll see the picture and they'll go, oh, I know him, or I know that shop. Also, you can have like local supermarket prices, the prices of strawberries or beer or wine or whatever. It used to be this before Brexit. Post-Brexit, it is this. No lies, no spin, just a fact. This has happened because of Brexit, and then deliver it around the houses, because we've got to think of ways of getting outside our bubble. This is great, me talking to Max and people leaving comments and stuff, but we are very much in our little bubble here. Yeah. We're not breaking out of that. There's a lot of people don't care about politics, not a big thing for most people, and they're just getting on with their lives, and they don't know Brexit is affecting them. And the problem is, this metaphor that I'll keep going back to, is if you put this whole thing, you put a frog in water and you slowly heat it up, it doesn't notice that the water's slowly heating up and it doesn't jump out. And what's going to happen with Brexit is a lot like that. We have had a 1-year transition period in which nothing changed. Now we've got a 6 months transition period in which the UK, this is mad, the UK, if it tries to sell things to the EU, it gets stopped at the border and probably turned back. But if the EU wants to sell things to the UK, it doesn't get stopped in the border and it just comes straight through. So the supermarkets in the UK haven't seen the empty shelves that we were fearing for no deal. Northern Ireland is, by the way, but that's another story. But then we're not seeing the massive effects of Brexit. And what they're going to do over the next 6 months is they're going to incrementally put the prices up, which they've been doing for the last 2-3 years anyway. And so when the price is, you pick something up and it's £6.50, you go, oh, that's the price it's always been, isn't it? And people probably need reminding that the supermarket round the corner from their house, whose, the picture of which is on your local Interesting Times paper, handed out by EU activists, it's gone up that much. They haven't noticed, but you make sure that they know that in 2016 it cost this much. It's 2021, it now costs this much because of Brexit. So stuff like that. Yeah, I think we've got to think of ways of getting around the media.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic approach, because we hear so much about fishing on the coast, but if you're living in the middle of Manchester or Liverpool, you're not going to care about fishing.
Hey, Liverpool's a port.
No, but on the other side of the country, if you're or at Dover or something like that, if you're living in Liverpool, you don't care what's happening in Dover or vice versa. Yeah,
exactly. And national messages don't care. No one cares about trade. It's boring. No one cares about the EU. Actually, it's boring. Sorry to everyone watching this, but it's kind of boring. Yeah. I'm just a boring person. What can I say? Politics. But most people don't care about politics. They're getting on with their lives. You hear this all the time, don't you? Why don't young people get more involved in politics? And you turn up to a political meeting and you're literally the only person under the age of 40 in a sea of elderly people. And you're like, I was on my way to the Wolf Alice gig, but I stopped to come here. I think I'm just going to continue on now. Thanks. Bye. But yeah, that's just the way it is. When you're young, when you're in your 20s, you're starting out in life, you're falling in love, you're making mistakes, you want to dance and sing and play guitar and make more mistakes and
travel the world.
For travel the world, fall in love with someone, fall in love with the wrong person, yay, and get married, settle down, have kids, not have kids, whatever. There's a lot of things going on in your life when you're in your 20s. However, when you're in your 60s, when you're in your 70s, there's not much going on in your life. You get to see the grandkids now and again. That's about it. No offense to older people watching this, but come on. You retire, you stop working, and then politics becomes a much bigger thing in your life. Of course it does, because there's not other things to do. I mean, These days, you can't even turn up to the post office half an hour before it opens to queue outside for no good reason. I mean, there's just nothing else than politics. And that's why so many older people get involved in politics. Oh, God, I get accused of ageism all the time. And I've probably just stepped in a load of shit.
let's move on. Peter, thank you very much. Peter says, Boris looks like Drago Malfoy during a midlife crisis.
He does. He does indeed. He's got the evil glare.
Yeah, Shawarts, €10. Thank you so much for that. Alex, £5 says, for fuck's sake, Crystal, why can't we have an individual EU membership? That's fair. 50% want out, 50% want in. Some pay some tax dollar EU and EU Scotia for economy clout. I'm not sure what that's about.
No, they're talking about single membership. So basically, people like me who used to pay £42 a year in my taxes to be part of the EU, well, I pay £84 a year and I can be an EU citizen and I get an EU passport, and that allows me to go and travel and live and work and retire and get married and build a house and start a business, whatever I want to do in the other countries of the EU. If you don't want those things, you just don't pay for them. So the EU gets the same amount of money every year from the UK, but it's just like whether you get an EU passport or you get a British passport. So at this moment in time, I would much rather have an EU passport.
But would you be supportive of something like that?
Yeah. Hell yeah! I'll bite your arm off.
Because the counter.
I don't know the EU would though.
No, the counter to that was Mark from Mark Vessling, who has a YouTube channel I had on about a week ago, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago. He said, "Look, this wouldn't be good for the EU because the EU want citizens, not just people paying money. And what it does is it wants." It's similar to what I think we're talking about. How in Estonia you can become a sort of citizen of Estonia if you set up a business there. You don't actually have to be living there. Yeah. And he said that's not good. It's not good for society if we allow just people with money to become citizens. He was, I think, I don't want to misquote him. But I think he may have been against
with that. I agree with that to some extent, but then you don't make it where it's like £50,000. You literally make it where it's just a few quid a week.
Yeah.
Like it's a Netflix subscription level of money. So it's money that should be available to the majority of people who want that. And if you were going to go for a job in the EU, you could sign up to that and you could pay a little bit extra and then you get the job. At the moment, British people, well, I say at the moment, for the next 10 years at least, British people are going to be discriminated against if they go for a job that needs a European to do the job. And it's not just jobs in Europe, it's jobs in Britain as well, where they will say this needs to be an EU citizen who goes for this job. A famous one a couple of weeks ago was the role of Prince William in a film about Princess Diana's life. They said specifically no British people for this job. No British, no dogs. Oh, well, I think it's about time, isn't it? When I was saying earlier about like other countries having a beef with us, this is something that winds me up, that Britain has done so many terrible things around the world. And if everyone held a grudge like the British, we couldn't go anywhere on holiday. We just literally couldn't go anywhere. And yet the way the British see the world is so like through this lens of all we did was good. We only did good things, and we gave these amazing things to all these other countries that, you know, were just, they weren't surviving without us, really. And the reality is, there was no altruism in it. There was no altruism in the British Empire. We didn't go to help people out. We went to steal their stuff. Yeah. We went to take the Elgin marbles or the Parthenon marbles. We went and we took the Corian, what was the name of it? The diamond that's in the Queen's headdress. It's from India. It's an Indian artifact. I don't know what it's doing in the UK. And as I've got older, I've got more and more sort of pissed off about this. Like, what gave us the right to go around the world stealing stuff from other countries, and then say, "Oh no, but you wouldn't have taken good care of it. We'll take good care of it." And that's just so patronizing and condescending and wrong on so many levels. So yeah, it breaks my heart. Absolutely, the one thing I think that Brexit has really, really got to me and upset me, because my job, my work, my things I do, it's not been that affected as affected as, say, a fisherman or something like that. But it's that question, isn't it? When I say to someone, "Where are you from?" and they don't want to answer me because of the fear that, like, I might be a Nazi, I might be a racist, I might be a Brexiteer, and I might give them loads of shit for being from another country. I mean, imagine that. Imagine a world in which your worth is based on the exact coordinate of longitude and latitude that you popped out your mum. Yeah. That's it for the rest of your life. It's random chance, and that, we're going to regard you in such a way because you didn't pop out your mum in Grimsby. And I find it really disheartening that we give, like, just more rights to sex offenders from Blackpool than we give to brain surgeons from Latvia.
Yeah.
Like, what how did that happen? Like, what have we become? What have we become? So this is where I pull back on the whole James O'Brien compassion for the con. But maybe, I find it hard to muster it up.
But really maybe let's be positive. Maybe, once Boris and the Tories are out, it will usher in something maybe a bit better. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a long time, though. Like I said at the start, we've got to win the country round. We've got to. It's a battle of hearts and minds, and it's going to take a very, very long time, because we have got to pull out we've got to suck out the poison of 30 years of lies about the EU, and they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. Even now, the tabloids are blaming the EU for things like Erasmus and the fishing debacle and the fact that British musicians can't tour in Europe anymore. I mean, I think it was in the Times. One thing Britain did right was music. The one thing that we could go, actually, yeah, we did a good one on that, was music. And we just turn around now and go, well, musicians, yeah, who can't make money now because of the Spotification of music. They can't make money out of their music. The only way they can make music is by playing live gigs.
Yeah.
Let's stop them playing live gigs. Yeah. Oh, no, Max, you can play here. You can play here if you're an EU band, so long as you play for free. So long as you don't get paid for it. Because do you know what? Musicians don't need food. It reminds me of the oatmeal cartoon where it was like, can you pay me for this job I've done? And they're like, no, we're going to pay you an exposure. And it was just pieces of paper with exposure written on it. And they went to the beach, and there's a guy selling ice cream. He said, can I have an ice cream? And he's like, yeah, do you accept exposure? And he's like, fuck no. Artists die of exposure.
I know, because a friend of mine, he's a musician, and he said it's a terrible life. People have this idea of glamour, but it's nothing like that. Anyway, let's move on. We have Darren. Thank you very much, Darren. £2. We have Jim. Thanks very much. £5. Jacob Rees-Mogg is a British fish supremacist. A fishist, if you will.
Fishist.
Yes, it's quite similar to another word. We have Ben. Thank you very much, Ben, for that £10. He's a massive fan of Graham. Your travel blog was a pleasure to read and a huge inspiration to him as a kid. So,
Buy my book. As a kid. Oh, yeah,
showing your
feel
age.
Old.
James again. I think Nigel Farage wants to quit his job now to avoid criticism. I don't think Nigel Farage is going to disappear. He likes the attention and the funding. £10 from Akismad. Thank you very much, Akismad. We have Johan, another €5. Thank you very much. Graham, 3 thumbs up. We have £5 from Scott's dog, and it's Boris was excited that Brexit was half-baked. No one fact-checked it. A bun in the oven. He's caused half a dozen. or more as each marriage he wrecks it. Fantastic. These are all available.
The guy, Boris Johnson, right? He's a moral and upstanding citizen. He is a what do they call him? Like someone to look for our children to look up to.
A role model, yes.
That's it. A role model. He's a role model. This is a man who he cheated on his wife, who was being treated for cancer with Carrie Simmons, who he's with now. And at the same time, he was cheating on Carrie Simmons with that bird, the blonde bird who helped him with his IT project that the British taxpayer paid for. Yeah, role model. I'd love my child to turn out like that, said nobody ever.
But he was at least fucking the entire country while he was doing all of that.
Oh, there's nothing that Boris Johnson hasn't seen that he wasn't wanted to fuck the country. Every woman at the country's future business. Famously, he said fuck business, and he has done such a good job of that. Someone in the comments there has put I think they were referring to the fact that leaving the EU has saved us a few £1 million a day, and it's like, actually, that lie on the side of a bus. Even if that was true, that the £350 million a week that we apparently send to the EU, we don't, right? We invest a smaller proportion of that money, but we do invest that money, and we get we got £2 billion worth of trade out of it a week, every week throughout the year. And now we've got rid of a huge chunk of that. In fact, £1.2 trillion, and I'm going to do my old, here's how you get your head around the £1 trillion montage. So, right, £1 trillion, right? If you stacked it up in £50 notes, so imagine you've got one £50 note and you stack it up, and then you put £50 notes on top of each other, right? £1 million, £1 million would come to 6'6". So a tall human, that would come to £1 million in £50 notes. If you wanted to go to 1 billion, you would have to go to Dubai. You'd have to go to the Burj Dubai, the tallest building in the world. And you would have to make a stack as high as the Burj Dubai. No, twice as high as the Burj Dubai. That would be a stack of £1 billion in £50 notes, okay? So imagine 12 of them, they were given to Dido Harding to a track and trace system that doesn't work. And now she's disappeared with all that money. But, it's only money. If you're talking about £1 trillion, £1 trillion, right? And this is how much in assets have left the United Kingdom for the EU since the Brexit vote. So actually, it's more than that. It's 1.2 per trillion. But let's just stick to £1 trillion. £1 trillion in £50 notes would be 5 times higher in a stack than the International Space Station. And that money has gone. Any Brexiteers watching this, answer my question. How the fuck do you imagine we are going to get that money back, you magnificent dickheads? Anyway, move on.
Moving on. We have Akbar. Thank you very much for that. How did Australia get its current terrible Australian deal anyway? I'm assuming when it was a colony, there was free trade with the UK. So, well, Australia doesn't have a deal with the EU. But how's it? Sorry, let me read the question again. How did Australia get its current terrible Australian deal anyway?
It doesn't have a deal. I mean, it's got some agreements, but it doesn't have a deal. We're talking now we're going to WTO territory. So the WTO was set up as GATT in the 1940s or something, a long time ago. It became the WTO in the 1990s, and its mission is to get free trade around the world. And they have 164 members, and basically they have these rules. And the rules that you have to abide by are the most important one is the most favored nation clause. And if you don't have a free trade deal with somebody, another country, then an official free trade deal that's, signed off by everybody, you have to give them the same deal that you give everyone else that you don't have a trade deal with. So If we decided to zero the tariffs on things coming in from the EU in lieu of a deal, then we would have to zero the tariffs on everything coming from everywhere else in the world as well, which would destroy our industry and destroy our produce, the agriculture, destroy our fishing, destroy just everything that we do. So obviously we weren't going to do that. And a lot of Brexiteers found themselves twisted in knots over this whole WTO thing, because remember a couple of years ago when Let's Go WTO was the hashtag to have? Yeah, that's died down very quickly, hasn't it? Because actually going to WTO rules will destroy British business and the British economy. Whereas what we've got now is a wafer-thin deal that was foisted on us by the EU, and we just agreed to it because that's Britain now. We just do what we're told. And we are going to destroy our economy, but we're going to do it in a slower way. So instead of it just taking a few months, it's going to take a few years, but we'll get there in the end. Don't worry. Russia.
Okay. Phil Spicer says, thanks for that £5, Phil. And never forgot that no matter what your political party or leanings, your rights and opportunities were stolen from you by this government. Yes, so the rights were taken away from you because people had rights. They had the right to move and live and love in different parts of the EU freely. That was taken away from them.
Well, not just that. I'm British. My EU citizenship was taken from me against my will. A couple of years' time, when Scotland leaves the Union, my British citizenship is going to be taken off me. I mean, when Theresa May said that haunted hockey stick, Theresa May said that I would said that I was a citizen of nowhere. You know, my book is literally called Man of the World, so I'm a man of nowhere. She really meant it. That was her dream, to disenfranchise, disincorporate, destroy the people of the United Kingdom and make the United Kingdom a kingdom that isn't united anymore. And when people go on about, oh, you don't respect with democracy, I say, well, how's it democratic for Scotland to be dragged out the EU, like you say, have those rights taken off them when 62% of them voted to stay in the EU? 62% of them voted to keep their rights and their fishing businesses, I guess.
Yes. Mikey, thanks very much for that super chat for £10. We need a pro-European left-leaning alternative talk radio station to counter the right-wing bias of LBC, the Times Radio and Talk Radio. Really cheap to do
Max,
online.
Let's do this. Come on, let's do this.
Yes.
Let's do it. Come on.
But we'd have to do
put it together.
We'd have to do it 24 hours a day.
No one listens at 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's just do it during the day. Me, you, Ben Chambers, Phil from a different bias. Anyone else who wants to get involved? Mike Galsworthy. Let's just do it. Let's just do it during the day. Actually, wait till James O'Brien goes offline. So 1 o'clock, right? Just do it from 1 o'clock till into the evening and do a talk radio thing. Let people call in and go, oh, I love Brexit because I don't have much of a brain, and we can set them right.
Okay. Yeah, let's...
Or you could hug them. I don't know. You could go, oh, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Not your fault. Goodwill hunting, not your fault.
But maybe something to keep under consideration. Okay, Michelle, thank you. Michelle Fraser, thank you so much for that super chat. I was wondering how old is old? So Graham was saying before, that makes me feel old. So how old is old? Are you going to give away your age?
God, I like to think of myself as a millennial, even though I'm 41 years old. So I'm kind of like probably a bit too old to be a millennial. Well. But in the way that I think and the way I led my life and the things that I do and the things I enjoy, I have much more in common with people a bit younger than me than people a bit older than me. So I like to see myself as millennial prime. And I just came up with the idea of, you know, just doing stuff and having a good time all the time. Wouldn't that be great? Whereas the older generations, especially the baby boomers, are all very rigid. I mean, imagine this is a period. We love doing period dramas in the UK, don't we? So, yeah, imagine this is a period drama. The baby boomers are all the people who go, no, you have to do it this way. And then the millennials are all like, but why? So I associate more with them. than with
Actually,
the older
that's
people
curious.
telling me
I just thought of
how to live my life.
Can you imagine
How to get a proper job? When are you going to get a proper job, Graham? I've got 2 Guinness World Records and a fucking private island in the Caribbean, and I still get told to get a proper job. I'm like, what? All right, fucking hell, get a job in HSBC, then I'll have a proper job.
Why don't you turn that private island into a tax haven?
Because I'm not evil, and I wouldn't know how to do it even if I was evil. No, I'm Ginger Island, and if you're interested in this, if you go to Ginger, I'm gonna type this onto the YouTube, so it's only available for YouTube people, but it's gingerisland.com. And that's my island, and I've been back in the UK. I didn't really come back because of Brexit. I came back because my dad has dementia, so I've been looking after him with my mum. I've got a whole story about COVID-19 and all that kind of stuff, but my island's still there. I still own it. I've got a Panamanian family are looking after it at the moment for me, and I'm paying them to look after it. But what I'm interested in doing is getting a council of chiefs together to look after the island, and we all look after it together, and we all get to go and visit and stay there and chill out, and the rest of the time we put it on Airbnb and stuff. So if you're interested in doing that, head over to gingerisland.com. It's J-I-J-A. I can't spell. J-A-N-J-A, like ninja, but with a J. And gingerisland.com, and have a look at the website. It's got all my blogs there. I lived there for 3 years and just had lots of parties and lots of good times. It was great. And now I look back at my blogs, because I had me blog traveling the world for 4 years, and then we blog living on this island for 3 years. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing in this bloody country behind the gammon curtain making YouTube videos? But you take your fun where you can get it. Sounds like a timeshare. No, angry Northerner, it's not a timeshare. It's very different from a timeshare, because you actually get to have like meetings about what we do with the place. I mean, it's like an investment.
How big is it?
It's not a timeshare. It's 2.2 acres, so it's about the size of 2 football fields.
Oh, it's not so small.
And it's a mangrove island.
Wow.
So it doesn't have a beach, but it's got a little house on it at the moment, and Wi-Fi, and it's 20 minutes from the airport. So it's a beautiful part of the world. Bocas del Toro in Panama. Check it out.
Oh, check it out. Yeah, definitely. We have James asks €2. Sorry, thanks very much. Scotland rejoin EU and Trump wall goes up. So, will Scotland rejoin the EU? What do you think, Graham?
Yes. Next question. As soon as possible. I mean, Scotland could rejoin in a week. It was part of the EU for years and years and years, dragged out against its will by Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage. And yeah, Scotland's going to get independence. It's going to happen. So just, that's the way it is. It's only an hour up the road from me in Durham here. So, I'm probably just going to run across the border.
You could do you could try and do what here in Italy, what they did was Cortina is a skiing resort. It's very, very high class. They wanted to become part of another region which wants to become part of Austria here in Italy. So maybe you could petition your council or your town to become a part of Scotland. Maybe. Well,
we thought. Oh, Steve Gavin from Liverpool for Europe. He wanted to turn Liverpool into a Brexit-free city. Like in the 80s, they had nuclear-free cities, which is a bit of a con because they still got power from nuclear power stations. But they said, we're a nuclear-free city. And that was like a successful campaign by Greenpeace and that. And I reckon that you could have Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, even Durham City, which all voted to remain, declare themselves Brexit-free cities and say, if anyone's here from the EU, we love them and we'll take care of them. Like model themselves on the sanctuary cities of America, where they're allowing people to live there who want to live there, and have that European mentality. I mean, Liverpool was picked off its arse by the European Union. We got 2.1 billion pounds in Objective One funding, and I grew up in Liverpool in the 80s, and I love the city. I love the bones of it. I'm the inventor of Global Scouse Day, founder of it. Which is at the end of February.
Sorry, Graham, can you describe what a Scouser is to people who maybe not, because this is quite an international audience. So.
Okay, so someone who's a Scouser is someone who's from the city of Liverpool, and the name Scouser comes from a dish, a food that we eat in Liverpool, which is basically Irish stew. So it's meat, potatoes, carrots, and onion, stewed in a pot, cooked on a hob for 3-4 hours, and it's what the sailors used to eat when they came to Liverpool, or what they brought off the ship. It comes from the Norwegian lobscouse, so if any Norwegians are watching, they'll probably make the connection there. But we are called Scousers. Our accent is called the Scouse accent, and every year on February the 28th, which happens to be my birthday, we have Global Scouse Day, which is a globally recognized event where everyone just eats scouse who is from Liverpool. So this year we're setting it up where we are, if you go to globalscouseday.com, actually don't go there now, you can go there tomorrow, but because I haven't put the link in yet, but we're working with Liverpool Independent Delivery Services, so you can buy your ingredients to get scouse, and also you can get hot scouse on the day if you want, and every time you buy a portion of scouse, you can opt to give the same amount to buy a portion of scouse for somebody in need in Liverpool. So every year we make sure that everyone who's homeless in Liverpool gets fed on the day, and we also make sure that poor families, I don't want to use that word poor, I mean economically disadvantaged families, especially families that have been hit really bad by COVID, get food. And hopefully we're trying to make it so it's not just for one day, it's for a while, because sure as shit they're not going to get much off this government.
Yes.
So that's scouse.
Very good. Thank you so much for that explanation. We have, let me see, we have Ukuima. I know I'm mispronouncing these names. I'm terrible. €5. Thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, that would be abused by capitalists. Brexit will pay the money, take all the advantages, but still moan about the EU, for example. I'm not sure exactly what that's related to.
Well, no, it's about the people paying to be part of the EU. Okay. I mean, look, if you look at any good idea, you can obviously pick holes in it and say, well, what about freeloaders? What about people who try and game the system? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, a good idea shouldn't be thrown out because a minority will abuse it. You could look at the NHS, you could look at UBI, you could look at anything and say, well, we do this, don't we, with benefits? We say, we shouldn't give benefits to people because there might be 0.1% who take the piss. And it's like, I remember a few years ago, there was an article in the Mail. Well, it was on the front page, and it was about a woman who lived in Birmingham, and she had 7 children, and she was claiming £19,000 a year off the British taxpayer, and how disgraceful this was that she was getting this amount of money. And this is one of the things that led to Cameron bringing in his 2 children cap on child benefit, which is just the cruelest thing I could possibly imagine, because it's punishing children for existing. And on the same newspaper, on the same day, on the same page, you had the 4 columns, basically the big headline bit about this woman in Birmingham, how dare she? And then on the right, there was a story about Gary Barlow from Take That, who owed the taxman £20 million. And that was like the lesser news. 20,000, 20 million.
Yeah.
And you just step back and go, really, is this the way? Yeah, this is the way that Britain works at the moment.
But I also want to raise another point regarding that. If this is news, it means it's not the normal situation. Like if somebody's claiming, like obviously, the bigger issue here is Gary Barlow not paying his bloody taxes. And that's the bigger story. But also this idea that there's somebody who's claiming £19,000 in welfare. This is not the normal situation. I've spoken to many people in the UK who are saying, I've never gotten anything like that. I have to live on £97 a week, and I have to wait 5 weeks for that bloody money to arrive.
Oh, but if you talk to a Brexiteer, they'll tell you about the Somalian family that live down the road who live in a mansion. Yeah. And you're like, really? What? Can you introduce me? Can we go round?
Maybe they
play
give
on
me
their
some tips.
PlayStation 5, on their big flat screen TV. And it's like they had this in America. They call them welfare queens, and it's this crazy idea that if you're on food stamps, you're a welfare queen, like you're living it up, like the Ritz. And it's like I just don't think the people who say these things live in the real world, or just I don't think they have any kind of self-actualization. They just don't understand the way. I don't understand. I think they don't understand the way that the world works, or that their position in the world, or whatever. I think they live in this fantasy.
No, I think they feel they have this grudge towards people who are getting something. So they see themselves, I'm working and this person is not working and they're getting money. But but they don't understand that this is for us to live as a society, because this money is there for maybe you in the future. Maybe you in the future, you have a problem, you lose your job, you get sick, you can't work. This is a safety net for you as well. This person is using the safety net. The safety net is there for you as well. Yeah.
Here's a question for you. How come if you look after your own children, it's not work, but if you look after your neighbor's children, it's work? How come if you do your own dishes, it's not work, but if you do your neighbor's dishes, it's work? How come if you clean your own house, it's not work, but if you clean your neighbor's house, it's work?
Yeah, our way of looking at the world.
How did that happen?
No, it's completely fucked up.
How did that happen? And that's just bizarre, isn't it? So could we just call it work and just go, everyone deserves universal basic income by being alive, and we need to make sure that they have enough money to live and eat and pay rent, have somewhere to live, and have a bit of fun.
I'd actually like to speak to
the
somebody
very basics.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to somebody who doesn't agree with UBI. Like, I'm fully on board with UBI. I don't know if you know, but I am.
They'll say we can't afford it. Although we can afford 12 billion to give to Dido Harding, who's the wife of a Tory MP, in order to have a track and trace system that doesn't work. A track and trace system that actively has killed people. And now we are losing a Titanic worth of British people every single day because her track and trace system didn't work. I mean, the Titanic, that was one ship that didn't work. I don't think it cost 12 billion.
But we've never asked the question. But whenever you say how are you going to pay for it as well with UBI, they never ask the question. We need to go to war with this country. How are you going to pay for it?
Yes.
They never ask. Nobody. The politicians, the media.
Never think about that one.
The politicians never. You never hear of the opposition saying to, well, you want to go. Tony Blair even. You wanted to go to war in Iraq. How much is it going to cost? How are you going to pay for it? Maybe somebody asked him, but we never hear these questions. If you want, we need to need to look after the poor, but how are we going to pay for that? We want to give some money
but it's a really disgusting attitude that so many people unfortunately have, and it comes down to this. As far as I'm concerned, you have two types of people in the UK and probably around the world at the moment. You have the people who can give it a go. They can give it a go. They can try something. They can make a YouTube channel. They can start a business. They can give it a go. They can try and be an artist. They can try and go into music. And if it's not successful, it's okay. It's okay because they can go and do something else. And then there are people, and this is the vast majority, that if they try to start up their own business or they try to make it as an artist and they fail, that's it.
Yeah,
they're destitute. They can't afford to feed their own children, and that is the big problem. That is the big change that's got to be made. And if you did make that change, if you did bring in UBI, then it wouldn't just open the door for people who want to play video games all day. It would open the door for people who want to make businesses happen, make entrepreneurs that want to make something cool.
Yeah.
And it would just 100%. Open up the gate, because it would take away the stress, the fearsome stress that so many people live under, that mountain on their shoulders, saying, if you fuck up this one time, this is your one shot, that's it, you're on the streets.
Yeah. And so many people...
They like you on the streets because that's an example to say, hey, don't get ideas above your station, young man, because what could then happen is you could be on the street like that fella there. And that's why they like it when there's lots of people on the streets in the UK.
It keeps people in their spot. keeps them in their place.
Yeah. It's very effective.
Okay, let's move on.
Don't complain.
Plumdoth, thank you so much for that super chat of super sticker of £5. Dr. Johan, €3. Thank you so much, Dr. Johan. We have Matt, who has sent us in £5. Do you ever think once the people realize how crap the New Deal is, they will the New Deal is? Will the government ever renegotiate a softer Brexit like customs union? So do you think that people will go, oh shit, this deal is terrible? Boris Johnson will say, yeah, you're right, let's go back to Europe and negotiate something else.
No, well, Brexit hasn't ended. I mean, we're going to be negotiating forever. Yeah. This is just the way. I mean, look at Switzerland. All it does is negotiate with the EU. But as far as the UK is concerned, no, not under Boris Johnson, not under this Conservative administration. We are not going to go back into the single market of the customs union. However, in the next few years, I believe that we should try and be pushing. We should push for re-entering Erasmus, which will be backed by British universities because they've lost a metric fuck ton of money because of us leaving Erasmus. I mean, it's been replaced by this Turing scheme, which is just as selfish as it is stupid. Because the Erasmus
as well.
The Erasmus scheme.
Yeah, sorry.
The Erasmus scheme was an exchange scheme, whereas the Turing scheme is basically we send British kids out around the world, but only the rich ones, because the amount of money the government gives towards each individual student is paltry and will not keep you alive for more than a couple of months anywhere in the world, apart from maybe Laos. But enjoy the University of the NTN.
But also the point they called it the Turing scheme.
Yes, which is a massive insult to the great Alan Turing, who another man who was absolutely fucked over by the government. So in a way, it's maybe appropriate. I don't know, but this is Alan Turing was a war hero. He shortened the war. And I know he had help from Polish code breakers, and from other British code breakers and these brilliant people, but his invention, the Colossus computer, which was made by a guy who worked for the post office, wasn't it? Called Mr. Flowers. It shortened the war. It shortened the war by, they reckon, by 2 years. But let's look at it this way. If the war in Europe hadn't ended in, I think, May 1945, America still would have developed the nuclear bomb. America still would have developed the nuclear bomb, and they would have still used it against Japan. And if we were still at war with Germany at that time, they would have used it on Berlin.
Yeah.
And Alan Turing stopped that because he shortened the length of the war. And what did we do to say thank you to this war hero? We kept his war record a secret, kept all his achievements a secret. He was found to have engaged in homosexual acts. So he was given the option. You can go to jail. Go to jail. It's a war hero going to jail for having sex with a man he wanted to have sex with, not hurting anyone else in the world. He's given the option. You can go to jail or you can take estrogen. Because at the time they believed that homosexuality was caused by too much testosterone. So if you took some estrogen, then you'll be all right. And as a result, he grew breasts and he ended up killing himself. And you just look at that story and you're like, that's awful. If you want to make a charity, a contribution, something in the name of Alan Turing, surely it should be something to do with mathematics, computing, gay rights, something other than curtailing the rights of British children and British students, to go and work, go and study in European countries. I mean, it's an absolute fucking insult to the memory of Alan Turing.
Do you think it was intentional or is just?
Yeah, of course it was. They don't give a. No, it's intentional. Everything they do is intentional. Yeah. They've got Saatchi and Saatchi behind them. We were talking about Guinness before, about them having a great advertising campaign. Yeah, those same billionaires that come up with those campaigns are behind the Tory party, 100%. wasn't it one of the Saatchi brothers who was married to Nigella Lawson, Lawson, and like actually physically assaulted her in a restaurant. I mean, this guy's absolute scum, and he's a huge Brexiteer. No surprise there. But look, the point is that calling it the Turing scheme is such a massive insult. They might as well, call it the Patrick Stewart scheme or something like that. It's just like a guy who's obviously been pro-EU. Let's call this anti-EU scheme after him for no good reason, other than he's a famous person and we want to pretend that we care. They don't care. They don't care. How many times do the Conservative government have to do things that prove they don't care before people get it around their heads that they really don't care?
Graham, I have a challenging question for you in a moment. No, we'll read it now. This is from Ensign for £5. Thanks for that. You were radicalized by Brexit, but crickets on austerity. Please explain.
So, when it comes to austerity, I mean, what can I say? That's a really good question, actually. I mean, I didn't pick up austerity. I wasn't in the country at the time. I wasn't here. When I came back to look after my dad, Brexit was a big thing. It was in the news. I felt like I had something to say about it. I knew something about it. The fact that we've gone from having next to no food banks to having thousands of food banks in this country is an absolute fucking disgrace. The whole austerity measures and all of that bullshit was the brainchild of the Conservative Party, who are still in power today. And we talk about how many people are dying from COVID, how many people died from austerity, from this dickheaded. I mean, it wasn't just cruel. It made economically, it made no sense, because any capitalist worth their salt will tell you the way you make an economy work isn't by making everyone poor. It is by people spending money, preferably on stuff they don't need. If no one has any money, then the economy just doesn't work as well as it could. And countries that didn't go into this vile austerity nonsense, they were the ones that came out of the credit crunch in 2008 better than we did. For my own part, I don't like politics. I find it boring. I find it obviously adversarial. You fall out with your friends, you fall out with your relatives, you fall out with your neighbors. It's just like not worth the hassle. And I was living abroad, Britain. I still watched things that were going on in Britain. But if you asked me 10 years ago who was in David Cameron's cabinet, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because that's how little interest I had in politics at that time. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't take pay more attention to what the vile Conservative government, popped up by the Lib Dems, don't forget, were doing at the time. And I just wish that things had turned out differently. I thought in the 2015 election, Labour would get in. I actually thought in 2010, oh shit, the Tories have won, but at least they'll be tempered by the Lib Dems from the more outrageous stuff that they would like to do, like, I don't know, Brexit. And I thought, well, Labour had been in at that point for 13 years, and they were running out of ideas. They were running out of vigor. They were running out of pep. They just seemed to be, shackled massively by the Tony Blair's idiotic foray into Iraq, which obviously just caused so much tragedy. I mean, that caused Brexit. You want to talk about dominoes falling? The intervention in Iraq caused the instability in the Middle East, which caused the eventually the Arab Spring in 2011, which caused the downfall of the Colonel Gaddafi and Mubarak in Egypt, but it also caused the Syrian civil war, which caused millions of Syrians to flood out of Syria because they didn't want to be killed. and try and make it into Europe, which fed the anti-immigrant, the anti-refugee, the anti-everyone bullshit that the people like Farage just live and breathe. And
Isn't it
I
funny?
thought in 2010,
but isn't it funny how
we'll have 10 years and then, sorry, we'll have 5 years of a Tory government, and then we'll go back to the sensible party and things will just truck on as they did. I didn't expect everything to be upended the way they were. Brexit compared with, you got COVID, Brexit, and austerity. And I really feel like just like the 3 of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse for the United Kingdom. I mean, they don't even make any economic sense. And this winds me up. It's like when people go on about the death sentence. Oh, let's just kill them. And I'm like, okay, let's take the moral argument to one side for a moment and just point out the fact that it costs more to kill someone to just keep them alive for the rest of their life. It costs more to kill them because when someone's going to die, they take legal advice and they go to court and say, I don't want to die, over and over again for 10 years. And if you've ever dealt with a lawyer, you should know they cost a metric fuck ton of money.
Okay, Graham, I know I'm not going to keep you on for too much longer because we're almost at 2 hours. So we just have a few questions we'll run through pretty quickly. We have from James, how will free speech suppression end in the future? So I don't know if you're familiar. There's a lot of right-wing channels that have sprung up recently talking about, the media are taking away, the woke media are taking away our free speech. This seems to be a new angle, I think, because they've moved on from Brexit. I think the Tories and the right wing have moved on from Brexit. They say, okay, we can't milk this any longer. Now let's start focusing on the culture wars. So something I wanted to talk with you before was how I think they were bringing up, some MPs were bringing up in Parliament how we shouldn't teach children about slavery, during the British Empire, or there are buildings that the National Trust want to, inform the public about, that these buildings were built with the money we generated from slavery. And there were MPs, including Jacob Rees-Mogg, obviously, who were saying, no, this is bad. Not the slavery was bad. The telling people that these buildings were built on the backs of slaves is bad because it, paints the UK the empire in a bad light. So how do we deal with this type of quote unquote anti-wokeness? Well,
first of all, we need to stop calling it wokeness. We just call it politeness or decency. I think decency is a really good word to use. So we need to use this political correctness, snowflakes, woke, whatever they say. No, I'm just being decent. And this is one of the things where they go, oh, well, you've kicked Donald Trump off Twitter. That's an affront to freedom of speech. When you hear that from a British commentator, that is just hilarious because in Britain, we have no freedom of speech. We actually have no freedoms in Britain. We have no written constitution. We have no right to do anything. All we have in law, in British law, and you can whinge about this as much as you like, but check the law because this is the law. You are basically allowed to do anything that there isn't a law against. And there are many laws against free speech, i.e., I am under no obligation to allow you into my house to tell me I'm a cunt. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to do that. It's my private property. I do not have to let you into my house. Similarly, I don't have to let you into my pub to recite a poem that you've written about how much of a cunt I am. I mean, I don't have to let you do that. I can bar you from my pub. It's my private property. If I had a Twitter, if I owned Twitter, if I was Mr. Jack Twitter, I could say, this is my private property. I don't want you on here calling me a cunt. And I could throw you off. The freedom of speech, which obviously we think is British now, like Trick or Treat and Thanksgiving, because we watch a lot of American movies. This is a thing that only exists, well, it exists in other countries in the world, but specifically the British idea of it comes from America. And in America, it is specifically, the First Amendment to the Constitution says Congress shall.
Yes.
They're the first 2 words. Read it. It says Congress shall not. stop anyone saying what they want. It doesn't say Twitter. It doesn't say the guy who owns the Dog and Bone pub. Do you know what I mean? It says Congress shall not. So it's a rule telling Congress that they can't shut people up. That does not give you the free right and the free reign to go anywhere at any time of day or night, private property, stand in the middle of someone else's field and, go on about how much of a massive racist you are. It just doesn't happen. But people have got this idea in their head. I don't know. Maybe they watch too many movies. Maybe they just watched Braveheart and Independence Day and went, oh, that's the way the world is. Freedom. Yeah. But that's not what freedom is, because rights work as a social contract. You give up, technically, some rights in order for society to function. You give up the right to murder people. You give up the right to rape people. You give up the right to thieve from people, because no society can function where those things are legal. So we have rules against them. And every society in the world, even the Papua New Guinean Highlanders that weren't discovered until the 1930s, had these rules in their own tribe. It's all right to go and murder another tribe, but in their own tribe, if you murdered someone in your tribe, you would be punished for that. Also, if you killed a pig, that's another matter. But the point is that if you have this romanticized ideal that freedom of speech means that you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, without any repercussions, you're sadly mistaken. And I'm sure there's an army of lawyers out there who would probably like to sue you for libel, slander. What's the other one? It's taking people down, saying that, I've forgotten what the word is, but there's a word that means basically defamation. That's the one. Defamation. Got there in the end.
Okay, let's move on. Yeah. Frank Monaghan, thank you so much for that super chat. We have, did I miss some? Ensign Hall again. It's perfect. Someone with a private island explaining how Brexit is for idiots. Brexit.
I won it in a game show. It's not like I was given it by my incredibly rich parents.
Yes.
Like everyone involved in Brexit was privately educated. Everyone involved in Brexit was born with a silver spoon up their arse. I wasn't, all right? I'm middle class, I'll admit that, but I've made my own opportunities in the world. When I traveled around the world, I did it. I raised money for charity while I did it, but also I couch surfed in people's houses. I took public transport. I wasn't flying on Concorde or first class. I was literally traveling on the top of trucks in Kenya to get to my next destination. So the idea that this island that I now have, that I'm paying money so that a Panamanian family can live on the island while I can't be there because I'm looking after me dad who's dying of dementia, is a bit like, okay, whatever, look at the surface and just not actually look at the details. The fact is that everyone, the Farage, Corbyn, Johnson, Gove, Cummings, I'll be here all night if I do this. Wigmore, Tice, Hannon, Banks, all of the media that were for Brexit, like Isabel Oakeshott, Nick Ferrari. In fact, 10 out of the 17 LBC presenters privately educated.
Yeah.
The two people who got in the running for the Liberal Democrats this last year, Layla Moran and Ed Davey, both privately educated. The people who run the Green Party, get this, right? So Caroline Lucas, the MP, Natalie Bennett, Jonathan Bartley. Are you going to finish the line for me here? Privately educated. So maybe we could like go to the police and complain. Oh no, Cressida Dick, privately educated. Maybe we'll find God and God could tell us what to do. No, the Archbishop of Canterbury went to Eton. Britain has an eating disorder. They're 7% of the population, yet they hold 99% of the power. And you might look at me and go, well, you've got an island in the Caribbean. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I've got this island that I won in a game show. Yeah. What, do you watch people on The Chase or Bullseye and go, oh, you bastard? It's like, I won it. I didn't, I wasn't given it by my parents. But like the idea that I'm the one to blame for all this and I shouldn't say anything is just so ludicrous when you look at the people who are actually responsible for this. Yeah. And all I can say is I've lost my rights as an EU citizen. I've lost those rights. I'm no longer an EU citizen. I can no longer live and work in another country without asking permission. But Nigel Farage, the privately educated city banker, millionaire, racist, Nazi scumbag, his children can. My stepchildren can't. Your children can't. Unless you're filthy fucking rich.
Well said.
So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Okay, let's move on. Macs are better than PCs. We'll leave that. That's an open question. He says, and thanks for that super chat. For £5, UK lives much in the past. World War II and World Cup '66. Also, too much public school exceptionalism, as you just said. Attitude in Westminster, which is why COVID is so bad. What can you just? I don't know how much longer you can stay on, Graham, but we'll try and get through.
Until I need the toilet. Can I get another beer?
Yeah.
I gotta go to the fridge. You just talk amongst yourselves. Go on. What's the question? Sorry.
Let me just jump back again. Why is there too much? Well, it wasn't really a question; it was more a statement. But about World War II and 2 World Wars and 1 World Cup. Why is that so? How has that been so powerful, and why has it been so powerful?
I think it's just to do with education. I mean, I find it's like a personal embarrassment to myself, not just the fact that I knew so little about the EU, but what I said about the Irish potato famine earlier. When I was doing the Three Blokes, me and Jason went over to Northern Ireland and we went to the Stormont Assembly, and it wasn't until that day, when I actually was told that the Irish population hadn't recovered from the potato famine. And I knew that it had happened. And I knew that Britain was, Britain didn't help matters. Let's put it that way. They were actually taking the food from Ireland while the crops were failing.
Yes.
I didn't know until that point that had happened. And I knew so little about the EU. And I'm a politics and history graduate. And that just mortifies me. How can I get a 2-1 in history and politics from Manchester University and not know that? That is like, why did no one tell me? Why didn't I find out for myself? I guess got to take some of the blame for that. But oh my God! And this is the education system in this country, that we big ourselves up all the time. Nothing we ever did in the past was bad. We were just trying to help people out everywhere. We were the first to ban slavery. And it's like, oh, great. Yeah, but we had slavery, didn't we? When we talk about being the first to ban slavery, what about the other countries that just, didn't have it?
Yeah.
But we did. And we went to Africa. And then people go, oh, well, the Africans sold themselves into slavery. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, they didn't. Imagine Europe, right, as a bunch of different countries, which Africa was at the time. And then we have the English have a war against Wales. They beat the Welsh, and then they put the Welsh in chains and sell them to someone from, Botswana.
Yeah. There's this idea that Africa is just one nation, or it's one block, and it's all the same.
It's not.
No,
it's 54 different countries.
Yes.
And many more different tribes.
And then different tribes within those individual countries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Divide and conquer.
We have Ministerian don't live to work. Yes, about UBI. Thanks very much for that super chat. Scott's dog, £5. Thanks so much. An American lady polyester thought Boris could help her bolster her business boutique. He put polling technique, but his polling technique made her wish she'd stayed in his holster. Okay, I'm terrible at reading poetry. Thanks so much for that. I just see. Don't send me poetry. I'm just terrible. I bastardize anything. I love this name. Starmer's Barber sends £5. Engaging chat tonight. You too. Cheers. Thanks very much. Jesus, we have €15 from Jesus. Thank you so much. How do you, both of you, feel about people campaigning against Corbyn and the Labour Party during his tenure, and possibly promoting Lib Dems and now complaining about a Tory rulership?
Well, I mean, I've made my if you're not watched any of my videos, I've made my views on Corbyn very, very clear. I think he was an absolute menace to the Labour Party. He was a menace to the left. He was a menace to socialism. He was a menace to remaining in the EU. A week before the EU referendum, half of all Labour voters polled didn't know whether Labour were for or against the staying in the EU. And to me, that's a dereliction of duty on a grand scale. He whipped his MPs. He whipped his MPs to vote for Article 50 with no amendments, no provisos, no safeguards. Here you go, Conservative Party. Go ahead with your mad-ass Brexit fantasies. We will give you our vote when we don't need to because you have a majority. And he whipped his members to vote. And this is a man who didn't whip his members to vote against Trident.
Yes.
So, you tell me he's a socialist. I don't believe it. I don't believe for a second that man is a socialist. I believe that he's a rich, aristocratic scumbag who surrounded himself with aristocratic scumbags who, came across from the Revolutionary Communist Party, like Andrew Murray. And obviously Claire Fox came from there, but she went a different way. And basically, he was either working for the Conservatives or so goddamn stupid and narcissistic, the Conservatives just used him as their puppet to do whatever they wanted, which was to get an 80-seat majority, which is what they got in the end. So, yeah, he's not part of the Labour Party anymore. He's not a member. Yay, I am.
But I actually thought he was trying to, I think in his mind, he thought that Brexit was going to be a disaster and that it would destroy the Tories. And then he would ride in on a white horse and save the day.
What a hero. After Britain's destroyed.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
No, what a hero. No, sorry, I made a mistake there. He's still a member of the Labour Party. He was let in by the NEC. He's not a Labour MP anymore. He's lost the whip, so he's an independent MP. Independent MP, member of the Labour Party. But I wish he'd just fuck off. Honestly, I wish he'd just fuck off and go away. He had his chance. And all the Corbynites had 4 years to convince me I was wrong, and they failed. And he had 4 years to convince me that he won the argument and he failed. All he's done is split the left. I mean, he's split the Labour Party. He's more divisive than Blair. And Blair invaded fucking Iraq. I mean, for Christ's sake. What does the guy have to do to earn some, some abuse off people like me?
Why didn't he leave the day after the election result? Why didn't he say, okay, this is a disaster, I'm gone? He stayed on until, what was it, February?
No, he stayed on till April or May or something. But I mean, why didn't he leave in 2017 when he lost the election of 2017? Yeah. Because he was surrounded by yes men, surrounded by people who said he was awesome and people who told him he was the Messiah. It was embarrassing. He's basically the Trump of the left. He's got no discernible qualities, yet everyone seems to just want to, fawn around him and worship him. And I'm like, what does he do? What's he got? This pisses me off because he went to a private prep school. He grew up in a lovely manor house with a massive garden, right? And he went to North London Polytechnic on 2 E's at A level. So he's thick, he's not just crap. He's also a bit thick, right? Because he couldn't get better grades at A level. Bless him. The rest of us who actually have to work for a living, worked for our exams because we wanted to get a job. We actually wanted to get somewhere in life, and we had to because we're not part of the aristocracy. But he could just do what he liked. So he dropped out. He dropped out of his Polytechnic, which was paid for by a fucking union. Back in the day when you got a bursary and a grant and you got free tuition fees. And then in the 2017 election, when he stood, he wasn't even going to get rid of tuition fees. We're talking about UBI here. We're talking about, basically changing the way that everyone lives for good socialist reasons. This guy wouldn't even get rid of tuition fees. He said, I'll make them a bit smaller. I'll make them £6,000 instead of £9,000. Oh, gee, thanks, mate. Thanks.
But that was really stupid. Even if he didn't have to go through it, he could have just said ran it as a policy. Said, yeah, we're going to get rid of tuition fees, and then when he get into power, then say, oh, I'm sorry, it's too expensive or whatever.
No, I'm not saying he should have done it.
What would he
shouldn't have done it. Just bring in a graduate tax. Just bring in a graduate tax. You earn over £27,000 a year. You pay an extra percentage of tax. That's it. No one would care. No one would notice. You wouldn't be getting letters every year trying to prove how much money you're making and having to send your statements to some random company in Scotland to say, oh, I'm not earning enough. How embarrassing and demoralizing that is. I can't pay back my student loan. Fuck, I should get a proper job. You're right. Do you know what I mean? I find the whole system that people can't get educated unless they're willing to go into massive amounts of debt. And don't forget, the rich don't go into debt because their mummy and daddy pay for it. Yeah. And his brother, when did he ever denounce his brother, Max? When did he ever say, oh, my brother's a fucking Fruit Loop who reckons that global warming isn't happening, the world is flat, and COVID's a myth? It's killed 90,000 British people. It's a myth, yeah. They just want us to wear masks because they want to control us. Fucking hell.
I don't know.
And he never denounced him. And he never stuck up for us. He was never there at any of our Remain rallies. He actually went and did something else on days when we were having big marches in London and made a big thing about it on Twitter. Oh, I'm in Morecambe. And he fucking gaslit us. He gaslit people on his own side. And I think there's just, I honestly, I really struggle now to just get out of my head who I fucking despise the most. Trump, Johnson, Rees-Mogg, Cummings, or this fucking Corbyn creep. I mean, seriously, they all went to private school, and I want to forget about de-Brexification. That can come later. Let's have a de-Lordification of the nation. That's what we need. We need to stop crawling on our hands and knees to the upper class and going, oh, you were born rich, you must know what's what. You look at Rees-Mogg, the best description I've heard of him is he's an idiot's idea of a clever man.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, that's him. But if he had a scally voice, if he came from some sink estate in Oldham, no way would he get anywhere in life. He'll be dealing crack on the corner and stealing old granny's fucking handbags. That's what he'll be doing. He's an absolute scumbag. He has no respect he's just got no humanity about him. He thinks it's funny that kids are going hungry. He thinks it's funny. He thinks it's all a game. And they all do on the Tory side. Okay, one thing I'll say in Jeremy Corbyn's defence, at least he took it seriously. I mean, he was an idiot, but at least he took it seriously. He didn't think it was all absolutely hilarious. Whereas Boris Johnson and his mates, the gang of screaming monkey clown car on fire knobheads running this country at the moment, they think it's a laugh. They think it's all hilarious. And you and I might have a laugh when we're talking about this stuff because, Christ, if we just talked about it and we'd just be in tears the whole time. It's just mortifying. We've kind of got a gallows humour about it all because you've got to. It's the only way to get through it. It's like working in a fucking morgue. And this is where we are in the country for no reason. Literally, there is no reason for this.
But I agree 100%. I think you come back to the main point is you have people who are so disconnected from the lives of ordinary people that they don't give a shit about those people. And you can throw Jeremy Corbyn in with that. Because if as you said before, if they fail, they just run back to Daddy and Daddy will fix their problems for them. If ordinary people fail, they're on the street. They're in food banks. Yeah. They're on universal credit. They have nobody to bail them out. And as you said, even with Jeremy Corbyn, he fucked up at school, but he didn't suffer any consequences.
Yeah. Oh God, if you or I got 2 E's at A-level and dropped out of uni or Polytechnic at the time, that's it. I mean, what were you going to get a job as? You're going to get a job running the biggest political party in Britain. You're not going to get that job. And it's all who you know. And that's the most demoralizing thing about all this, to be honest with you, for me personally. After all I've done and my qualifications and everything, like I tried to stand to help the Lib Dems last year. Well, 2 years ago now, I guess we're in 2021. And they just they couldn't have told me to fuck off in more articulate language than literally the words "fuck off." They were just like, "We don't want anything to do with you. Go away." And I never had that before. I'm like, but I've got all this stuff. I've done all this stuff.
And you're passionate about something.
But I'm too passionate and sweary and scouse, and I'm not beige enough. I mean, if you want to get into the Lib Dems, just paint yourself beige. You'll get straight in.
Like a gammon.
Fucking useless.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad, actually. I'm glad. I'm going to take this back. So if any Lib Dems watching this, thank you so much for rejecting me so harshly and saying that I needed to work on my, what was it? My resilience. Yeah. This is a guy who spent 6 days with no food on his own in a jail cell in Brazzaville, Congo. But tell me about resilience, right? After that, I put my hat back on my head and I continued on my little adventure around Africa. But tell me about resilience. I don't have enough of it to join the to join in with the Lib Dems. So, you know, they didn't want me. Whatever.
Okay.
I'm not bitter about it, honest.
Ministerian 200 Danish kroner. Thank you so much for that. I don't know how much that works out at, but it's great. The king must die so the nation can live. I agree 100% there. Glasgow Kiss, £5. Thanks for the stream, guys. Really enjoyed it. And we have Leafbone, £10. Thank you so much. And we'll have to end it here with the final super chat. This is from Patricia Moffat. I'm retired and I'm listening to you as I've got nothing else to do until next Wednesday's PMQs. Great.
Sorry. Oh god.
So, so the stream went on for 2 hours 20 minutes. So I want to say a huge thank you for Graham for putting up with all of us. It's great. It's been great. So I want to say we'll probably end the stream here as we are. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone for sending a super chat. Those super chats I'm going to add them all up and we're going to divide them between the two charities that we mentioned at the beginning of the stream. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's come on. I haven't checked the views, but I think we're up at an 800 or 900 at one stage. That's amazing. Almost at Phil. So, you know, you're on the same league as Phil from a different bias. Okay, Graham. I recommend checking out, of course, becoming a subscriber of Graham and also support him on Patreon if you can. And what else? The moderators, fantastic job. Great job, moderators. And of course, a huge thank you for Graham for coming on. Thanks so much for doing that. So guys, have a great weekend. I'm going to end the stream in a moment now. So have a great weekend. Take care. And as Boris Johnson always says, stay alert. Good night, guys. Take care. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Same bat